we say to the world, come join us. If you have a pulse, if you are a human being, and if you can agree with these principles, walk right in. Become a part of this institution, this movement. In that way, we are a unifying force. Secondly, there are no barriers here based on sexual orientation or color of one's skin or background. There are well-established and powerful and very large religious institutions out there in the world today who will say, if you're gay or trans, we have a problem with you. We have not yet settled whether or not you should be allowed in our institution. We have to think more about that. That doesn't occur in this religious institution. We say to people of all types across the full spectrum of humanity, you are welcome here. We're not going to engage in a debate about whether or not you are fully human enough to be a part of our religious community. In fact, we endeavor to do the opposite in myriad ways to express our desire to be inclusive. Thirdly, we are a radically democratic institution. We have democracy as one of our principles. Everything about our religious institution flows from a democratic process. Let me give you an example. You are now in the midst of a great and wonderful search for a new settled minister. How is that going to be chosen? It's going to be chosen by a group of people who were democratically elected and chosen to pursue that aim. How will your new settled minister become your settled minister? By a vote of the people. How do you get to vote? By being a member of the congregation. So, by the way, if you haven't made a decision to join the church, go ahead and do it now. So you can be a part of that important vote. Don't be one of those people that join just a week before the vote occurs, okay? There is no bishop. There is no ecclesiastical headquarters somewhere dictating who can apply here and how the new minister can be accepted here. It is rooted in the congregation itself. That new settled minister is chosen with a thoroughly open process and a public vote. Could somebody here tell one of their friends somewhere that there is a religious institution down on Robin Hood Road that believes in democracy? Would somebody be willing to do that to a neighbor and say, there's actually a religious institution in Winston-Salem that goes full in to democracy? But wait, there are other ways in which we are a force of unity. We embrace science, and that is a very powerful, unifying power. We do not say, wait a minute, science says some things which offend us, which are contrary to one of our dogmas, so we must draw a line there. Yes, we will assent to science when we're going to visit our doctor, but not when we go to our church, our religious place of choice. We say to science, teach us what we can know about the world. And because of our openness to science, we are open to what science has told us and is telling us about the world. And that is a very unifying force. Science helps us understand our unity as a species, our unity with nature, and our belonging as one people to a great evolutionary story. Science tells us that we are all part of one great story, the evolution of life, the evolution of the universe. Loyal Rue, a philosopher who is the son of a Lutheran minister who taught his entire life in a state that's in the middle of America, he said, human beings need stories, grand, compelling stories that help to orient us in our lives and in the cosmos. The epic of evolution is such a story, beautifully suited to anchor our search for planetary consensus, telling us of our nature, our place, our context. Science gives us a common story that defines and embraces us all, none excluded. We do not have to struggle to look for ways to be unified. It is already given to us. Science teaches us, as well as the great ethical norms of history, that creating otherness based on skin color, physiology, language, culture, sexual orientation, and every other way we divide people is a grotesque distortion of our unity as a species. While traditional religions have been antagonistic or indifferent towards science, it is through science that religion has the opportunity to be reborn. Loyal Rue, again, writes, "We shall be doomed unless we embrace a story that can move us all to enlarge the scope of our interest and affections to include all human, all species, and the biosphere." This re-engagement with science that is a part of our religious movement allows us to reignite awe, wonder, amazement, to replace the old religious awe associated with the religions of old. Religious belief systems are losing their credibility. It is happening. It is a tide that cannot be stopped. A couple of weeks ago, I cited some statistics. One of them is that in around 1965, 70% of Americans identified themselves with traditional Christianity, whatever that might mean, broadly speaking. In 2070, that number will go to 30% of the population. We see the demise of religion playing out in European countries now, in Britain, for example. And what is growing? What group is growing? It is those people that have no affiliation with religion of any kind, but have some degree of spiritual yearning. Those are precisely the kinds of people that can be attracted to here. We can see the evidence of this with our own eyes. If we go downtown to any of the mainline Protestant or Catholic congregations in this city and look around at who is there, it consists of elderly people whom I love. You know I love them, Gus. I want to make that clear. But it's not. There's nothing wicked about being old. I'm old myself. But you know what I mean. There's no young people there. There's no young people there. So we don't have to read a book that has statistics. We can see the reality of what is happening with our own eyes. Religious belief systems have been losing their credibility for decades, and that skepticism is most pronounced and profound the younger in age we go. There is evidence to believe much evidence to believe that the major traditions, the stories, the grand stories of the great religions of the world are losing their hold on the minds and imaginations of people. And this creates a dangerous situation because it threatens the viability of the function of religion in society. What is that function? It is to create personal wholeness and social cohesion, promote personal integrity, moral strength, and a desire to do something meaningful with life, and religion functions to enhance social cohesion. Those things are threatened. January 6th, a group of people tried to overthrow the government. There's so many manifestations of fragmentation, of people being lost to nihilism or madness. So the world is becoming a confused, polarized, and dangerous place as the traditional means of creating solidarity, personal wholeness, and cooperation slips away. We see that happening in our society right now. To quote Rue again, religious traditions are narrative traditions, each one with a distinctive story at its core. A religious myth or story is the principal means by which members of a culture come to share a common wisdom, a common understanding about how things are in the real world and about which things really matter. As traditional religions and stories and myths fall away, the understanding of the world that has been created by science has created a real basis of unity. To quote Rue again, for the very first time in the history of our species, we have before us an astonishing and captivating narrative that has the unique power to unite all of humanity in a common vision. And we can say, again, with rare certainty, that it is also the truest comprehensive narrative ever told. Why is this important? We shall be doomed, Rue writes, unless we embrace a story that can move us to enlarge the scope of our interests and affections to include all humans, all species of life, and the biosphere. That's what we do. We, as a religious group, have forsaken the fragmentation and the sectionalism of our society and provided a unifying vision through our embrace of science and by other means. We have at our disposal a way of unifying people, of helping people see that we are part of one great human family, and that this family is not just human, but all of life. The old ways of defining participation in a religious community involving creeds, preset dogmas, rigid frames of reference, and the rejection of knowledge that contradicts these old ideas, that strategy is no longer working. And we, as a religious movement, have a different path that's been created over decades of experience and work. UUs are the most unifying, potentially, religious movement in America for all the reasons I just outlined. I wish more people knew that. Maybe you will do something about it. It's all in your hands.